All right, we are live, but we got to let it breathe, baby, just for a moment here while we bring on Facebook. You guys know the drill, and while we're doing that, I guess I had better check, make sure it's the right microphone. We're good. Welcome in, everybody. It's the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, my fellow football priest. You know him, you love him. I'm sure you've missed him. It's been a few days since last we were on. Zack Kelberman. Zack, first things first, we can get to like our Bronco takeaways from the Super Bowl and our general takeaways. But how did you feel about what you saw yesterday?
Not surprised. Validated in a sense. This was the first Super Bowl I can remember pretty much since 2020 where I was completely divested from it from an emotional standpoint, just because of what happened in the AFC title game, because of the history between the Broncos and the Seahawks. I really didn't care who won. It was a lose-lose. So I didn't pay as close attention to it as other Super Bowls, but not surprising that Drake May and the Patriots were exposed for what they were, Chad, which was not ready for that stage.
Yeah, it's like Scott, he's not with us tonight. He's got some stuff cooking, but it's like he said in the immediate aftermath, Zach, of the AFC title game. It's like, I still don't know how good the New England Patriots are
Right.
because they kind of got handed a freebie, which they honestly should have lost even that because take away, Zach, the 4th-and-1 decision from Sean Payton early in the game. Let's just say that still happens and goes down the way it did. Let's still say the two-handed fumble, to quote you, of Stiddy still happens the way it did.
Yeah.
If Will Lutz just makes those 2 field goals that he
Right.
normally makes,
Right.
Broncos are still in the Super Bowl. So, yeah, the Patriots turned out, Zach, false gold, and I watched that game feeling just this, on one hand, kind of sickening feeling, but on the other, like actually very encouraged and confident and exciting. And that is the Broncos should have been in the Super Bowl. They would have, if Bo doesn't get hurt, they would have got through the Patriots at home, even in the elements, Zach. Bo would have found a way. And I'm sorry, did Sam Darnold in that offense blow your socks off? Were you completely stunned and overwhelmed by the Seahawks offense? Their defense obviously played very well, scored, all that stuff. But I think Bo Nix, he would have traded field goals with Sam Darnold. I think the Broncos defense, Zach, would have been about the same as the Seahawks in terms, or as the Patriots in terms of limiting the Seahawks.
Yeah.
And then I think you wouldn't have had the turnovers that you saw from Drake May, from Bo. And I think it would have come down to the bottom of the 4th. Bo gets a chance, and the Broncos could just very well be world champs. But maybe that's how it shook out in an alternate football universe.
Oh, it definitely did. And for every reason you just laid out perfectly is why the wound is still so fresh for me, is the same reason why I was so divested from this year's Super Bowl, Chat. I think it's common knowledge by now and the consensus among most, if not all people, that if Bo Nix were to stay healthy, they would have won the AFC title game. And listen, who knows what would have happened in the Super Bowl? Maybe the Seahawks still would have won, but I guarantee you Bo Nix and the Broncos offense would have scored more than the Patriots did, and the defense wouldn't have allowed as many points as the Patriots defense would have. It would have been a closer game. What we got in this timeline, Chad, in this universe was kind of a stinker.
Dude, honestly, I don't think the Seahawks defense was that good in the Super Bowl. They were good. They found a way as Drake May started getting desperate in the second half to knock the ball out and get some turnovers. But I think it was more, Zach, a product of big stage. We honestly don't belong here, more so than it was the Seahawks defense imposing its will. And the Broncos, here's a big difference. All right, let's just say Bo Nix and Drake May, whatever you want to say about them relative to their comparables and how good one is over the other. But the Broncos defense, Zach, would have held things together, given Bo that opportunity at the end. I don't know. The more I think about it, the more it actually wants to drive me crazy. So I got to kind of lay off some of those thoughts. But coming out of that Super Bowl, man, I'm even more encouraged by what the future holds for this team.
Well, I have two additional thoughts. I saw something on Twitter. I don't know if it's valid, but I saw that a quarterback in his second season who reached the Super Bowl, they never went back and reached it again in their career. So maybe in hindsight, Chad, it's a good thing that Bo Nix never made it this year. I don't know, man. The other thing that strikes me is that it's the Broncos still. We did the power rankings today. I wrote that piece up, and the Broncos still are being discounted as behind the Patriots. Still, there's still the what if, and Jeff Legwold of ESPN even said it might not have changed much if Bo Nix would have stayed healthy. I think that's I disregard that, Chad. I don't know. I don't agree with that.
All due respect to Legwald, who we genuinely do have nothing but love and respect for, I disagree with that bigly. I couldn't disagree with that more. Let's see what the community has to say. We got the Papa Bear checking in early with a generous super chat. Thank you, big dog. And by the way, to the Mount Rushmore superstars of 2025, let us know when you start seeing your t-shirts show up and your little care package. So it should be any day now. I've gotten tracking numbers on everything. Everything has been shipped and on the road. So please let us know. Papa Bear, though, says, good evening, Broncos country. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. 26-27 off-season begins. Yeah, I mean, we are trying to get to 40,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we're about 1,700 and change away from that. So if you are one of the listeners who isn't subscribed yet, welcome. Please come and subscribe. Become part of the family here at MHH and help us reach that goal. Papa Bear, thank you, big dog. And yes, officially, the NFL offseason, Zach, begins today, although the Broncos had obviously a 2-week head start.
You know, I realize I'm getting older because I'm losing my train of thought more often, Chad. And one thing I did want to mention earlier, my little preamble a second ago, was Kenneth Walker, the MVP of the Super Bowl. He's scheduled to be a free agent. And I don't know how likely it is that he hits the open market, but we talk about the offseason starting. Next month is my favorite time, David, of the offseason, because that's free agency and all the moves are being made. And that's one guy because, Chad, the Broncos have to upgrade their backfield. Maybe second most biggest priority behind wide receiver. Kenneth Walker's a free agent. Breece Hall. I'm so looking forward, David, to the moves they're going to make. Thank you for the super.
No doubt. Thank you, buddy. We got Ted Wunderlich in the house, another superstar, dear friend, a dear member. Thank you, Ted. Great to see you. He says, Drake, somehow just as unplayable as Jarrett Stidham may. Lesson, Bo would have probably won a ring. Lesson 2, it'll be harder next year, MHH for life. Yeah, so here's the thing, Zach. Similar to the opportunity presented to Josh Allen and why heads ultimately rolled in Buffalo, you had a shot at a ring without having to vie with Mahomes, Lamar, or Burrow. And the same can be said for the Broncos. Bo Nix had his shot. Unfortunately, can't control it, but he got the injury. It's not always going to be that way. In fact, more often than not, you're going to see those names I just mentioned at least vying for the playoffs. However, there is a couple things to keep in mind this time around, Zach. Not so much in Kansas City, although there are some obstacles they have to overcome. We'll talk about here in a minute. But the AFC's been very much shaken up this year with different coaching carousel, coaching firings, hirings, and we'll see how it plays out, like with the Ravens, for example. But, I'm not that scared anymore of Kansas City, Zach. Like, I know last year was just a weird, strange anomaly in terms of trying to explain how far of a step back they took. I think it really was more of an outlier nature than it was like, there's something rotten in Denmark or whatever. I think they'll bounce back. What we don't know, though, Zach, is exactly how well and quickly Patrick Mahomes is going to bounce back from that knee.
Exactly. I think the biggest takeaway there that I agree with, Chad, is I'm not scared of facing Kansas City anymore. And most importantly, despite what, who hears what we say, it's what the Broncos feel, and they play like they're not scared of Kansas City anymore. For almost a decade, they treated Kansas City like an infallible team, like this god that cannot be beaten. They gave them too much respect. And this year, they treated them with disrespect the way they played against them. Just full energy, high octane, very aggressive. So, yeah, once you slay the beast isn't the beast anymore. The beast is a mere mortal. And that's what Kansas City, that's what Patrick Mahomes, and that's what Andy Reid, as good as they were, that's what they are in 2026. Mortal.
And we got to admit, Zach, that the Broncos under Sean Payton, and it actually began in 2023. Let's not forget, even with Russ, it was Sean Payton 2023 breaking the streak, that ignominious, unfathomable winning streak they had over the Broncos. But they match up Sean Payton's Broncos very, very well with the Chiefs. Why? Well, because the team was literally built to unseat the Chiefs from the AFC West. And you know what? We talk about a freak injury to Bo Nix is basically robbed the Broncos at a shot at a ring. Well, were it not for another freak incident, Zach, that happened, Bo Nix would be 4-0 against the Chiefs. 4-0. Now, granted, Zach, only 2 of those were against Mahomes, right? On the road at Kansas City and in his rookie year, and then last year at home in Denver, which, by the way, last year at home in Denver, Broncos won that game. And it was when the Chiefs were still relevant and they were desperate. Like, they could not afford to lose many more games because of how they started the season. Broncos still got that win. So I still feel relatively comfortable and confident in the division. The one thing that you can't really control, the variables are kind of fourfold what they are in the division, is getting that number one seed, which comes with the blessings and benefit of first round bye, home field advantage.
If there's a bigger roadblock in the West right now, it's not Kansas City, it's Los Angeles. That's the one bugaboo facing Bo Nix and the Broncos, and Sean Payton is facing, a healthy Charger squad anyway with Justin Herbert. And speaking of which, they just hired Adam Gase today, former Broncos OC, to their offensive staff. That should be interesting. But yeah, I'm not scared of Kansas City anymore. The Broncos prove they can beat them. And also retaining, you mentioned they have the blueprint to beat the Chiefs. Well, Vance Joseph in that defense, if there's one thing that VJ has done well in Denver, it's play Kansas City and Mahomes extremely well. So keeping VJ as a defensive coordinator will only help in that regard.
Not only that, but most of your key pieces on defense are coming back. They're under contract. As we continue to kind of march through the offseason, we'll start. And actually, I mean, you think about how quickly time flies, right? Like how quickly the calendar turned over to 2026, and we're already a week and a half into February. In other words, the new league year that opens, I think, Zach, it's March 11th or 10th, is a month away, and it's going to be here quick. My point on that is the Broncos do have a few decisions to make on defense. They got to decide which of their two inside linebackers they're going to bring back. I mean, there's always a chance they try to bring both back, but Justin Sternad is not willing, apparently, to accept a backup job. And if he has offers out there that are guaranteeing him a starting job, he'll probably take those over the Broncos. But you wrote about it today, Zach. It's looking like John Franklin Myers indeed is probably gonzo. But even if he's gone, Zach, and even if you only bring back Alex Singleton at linebacker, this defense, the bones of it are still in place for 2026 relative to your point about BJ and the Chiefs.
I got to be honest, of that group, the only one that I want to sign to a long-term deal and really bring back for the future is Jaquan McMillian, the RFA slot cornerback. I'm letting Singleton walk. I'm letting Sternad walk, and I'm trying to upgrade that position, maybe with someone like Devin Lloyd on the open market. But yeah, you're right about the pieces being left in place. And you also were right to bring up JFM, who's projected to get like a $50 million deal over 4 years on the open market. I really wish the Broncos could end up retaining him. I know they have Walmart money and this and that, but they can't pay everyone. They've paid other defenders, and he's going to be so good for another team. He deserves his bag. It's just a shame that his time in Denver, Chad, is likely up now.
Sam Bam, thank you, big dog. It's so good to see you again. Be checking the mail for your Mount Rushmore care package. Sam, thank you, pal, for being a dear member as well. Saying evening, guys. The offseason is now officially upon us. Glad the fluke Patriots didn't win yesterday. What do you think the biggest question marks are for the Broncos going into this offseason? Super Bowl 61 will be ours. Go Broncos. Well, first of all, I'm really excited for Bo Nix. He's going to be a man on a mission out to try and make up for lost time. He's going to be so pissed. He's going to play, I think, Zach, on a different level. But that's not what he's asking. The biggest question marks for me, I know we've been really focused, Zach, on wide receiver one and building that nest around Bo, and that remains a thing. But part of building that nest is, crying out loud, you got to get a run game. Seattle showed you that at least, right? Yesterday, I mean, Kenneth Walker, as you mentioned, hitting free agency. Let's go get that guy, man, if you can. But the Broncos, one way or another, Zach, and I think they have the personnel pieces in place up front, they've still kind of lacked the right pieces in the backfield. That has to get answered this offseason. And J.K. Dobbins, by the way, could be part of that answer. You can't rely on him to be the answer.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned one question mark already, which is who are the Broncos going to resign among their own free agents? You mentioned a few of them already, so that's number one. Number two, they have a few positional coaches, Chad, a few openings on the coaching staff that have yet to be filled, so I want to see who they hire to bring in to bring aboard there. And also, it's not just who are we getting to help out Bo Nix, it's how many receivers and running backs are we getting and tight ends to help out Bo Nix, because Sam, and thank you so much for your super, that is the number one objective this offseason. We could talk about re-signing Singleton and bringing back JFM, it doesn't matter. The number one goal is helping out Bo Nix. So Chad hit on it. I'll just echo what he said there.
No doubt about it. Sam, it's so good to see you. And look, there are also issues to be decided on defense for the most part. Even if JFM leaves, I feel pretty good about how things are set up on the D line. Although, hey man, it's not easy to manufacture individual levels 7 sacks plus per season from an interior rusher. So that's why I'm like, why are we just acting like John Franklin Myers is as good as gone? Why did the Broncos not even approach him during the bye when they extended all those guys? And why is he just being, I don't understand it. It must be something. Is it his attitude? Is it things he said? I don't know. I have no idea. This is me completely speculating, but that is something that I don't think Malcolm Roach steps in as a starter and all of a sudden gives you 7-8 sacks. I don't think that's something Uwazurike does. Maybe a sum of its parts type of thing. Savion Jones at some point, probably, but I don't expect to see that, Zach, in his second year. So that's another question for me. And then look, inside linebacker, I hope they're not betting the Broncos on some kind of miraculous Drew Sanders stays healthy in a contract year. Development as one of the pieces to rely on next to Dre Greenlaw. So I think it ends up, Zach, being Alex Singleton comes back on a 2-year deal, front loaded with basically year one's guaranteed. He'll get the opportunity anyway to play out what remains of his career in Denver. I think Sternad walks, but you still need to find some upgrades and some replenish that room because, hey, man, I like Lavelle Bailey. I still think there might be something there with Drew Sanders, Jordan Turner, Karine Reed. Yeah, none of these guys do I view those, Zach, as like future long-term guy next to Dre Greenlaw.
Well, when it comes to JFM, the only thing we can go on are assumptions. And I'll make mine. I agree with you. I think it's his attitude, Chad, because he's been very vocal publicly on Twitter and social media about wanting a long-term extension in Denver. And I can only imagine privately what he's floating to the team, his demands and what he thinks of himself. And listen, he's a guy who talks a big game and then goes on the field and backs it up. Those kind of guys have a very high net worth of themselves. So you can't pay everyone. It's the reality of the business. He understands that. He's been a good team player. He deserves a bag. He deserves a big payday. He'll get it. I just wish it could be in Denver. He's a tremendous player.
All right, Raj, we're going to get your question about Bo's injury here in just a moment. First, we got to grab Michaela Parker, the Duchess,
Thank you.
jumping in off the top rope.
Thank you.
And I love the optimistic messaging she is signaling, Zach, just through her profile pic on YouTube. Bo, resolute, ready to rock and roll. I love it. And I love you, Michaela. It's great to see you. She says, watching the Super Bowl yesterday, was thinking the whole time we should have been there. I mean, I think everyone, Zach, outside of the greater Boston area was thinking that as well. Love you, Michaela.
Even Broncos players were, if you follow enough of them on social media, Alex Singleton said today sucks, but it's motivation. You had, I think it was PJ Locke who said, cry me a river, damn right. It sucks that we're not here right now. It was tough to watch for anyone. And that's why I know, like I said it before a few times already, I was so emotionally detached from yesterday's game. But thank you for that big super, Michaela. And our time is coming. I promise you our time is soon.
I'm telling you, Bo doesn't get hurt. And by the way, whatever these rumors are about, he hurt his ankle celebrating in the locker room, it's not true.
No.
You could see where it happened. We know the play, third to last play of the game. You could see him in pain on the sideline. You could see him in pain when he's given that midfield interview to Tracy Wolfson when she asked him about the AFC title game and the rare opportunity to host it as the Broncos. You could see that moment of just like anxiety and anguish. Well, I don't know where that's coming from, but guys, there's no truth to it. But look, Zach, let's just pretend Bo Nix does not hurt his ankle. All right. You come off that high, and remember how high we were for 45 minutes, Zach, of bliss following that Bills game. We're going, oh my gosh, we are hosting the AFC Championship game. We are riding high.
And then
we just vanquished one of the best quarterbacks in the game in a desperate shootout, which that game was, goes to overtime. We're just like, yeah. Well, imagine the high stays. Bo doesn't get hurt. The Patriots show up. We know the second half, the weather wasn't going to be what the weather was going to be. At the very least, Zach, Bo Nix hits that play over the top early to Marvin Mims. You score a play or two later with Cortland Sutton, and then that 4th and 1, maybe it's a different play. But let's just say it shakes out that way. It's incomplete. That's fine. You miss out on the field goal. That's the turning point of that game. Wasn't the snow. The turning point was Jarrett Stidham's utter ridiculously stupid turnover that gifted the Patriots their only touchdown of the game. Bo doesn't do that. Bo does not turn the ball over. He might throw a pick here and there, Zach, but he sure as hell does not fumble. Bo Nix does not fumble. So that, I'm getting to a point here real quick. That would have been different. Broncos at worst would have been 10-3 going into the half. Even if they were unable to, let's say Will Lutz still, Zach, misses his 2 field goals, whatever, and it finishes, it would have been 10-3. Broncos win the game, move to the AFC Championship game. 10-3 because of the snow, mind you, not because New England is some out-of-control, wicked defense. The snow in the second half. And then you get to the Super Bowl. Oh, my gosh. I could see Bo Nix trading, if not better, but at least, Zach, trading field goals with Sam Darnold. And it kind of looks like that maybe a little bit boring as far as a Super Bowl to the greater, wider audience. You get to the fourth quarter, though, that Broncos defense finds a way to pop the ball out or get the ball back, gives Bo one last chance. I can see it right now. Like, we saw how it shook out. One of the reasons, last thing, and I'm serving it back to you. Sorry for being long-winded on this, but one of the things we saw, I think, in Drake May was that, yes, he had won 3 playoff games to get to the Super Bowl, but the Patriots' schedule, Zach, was so easy. He was relatively untested in the crucible of shiz kind of moments. Yeah. Whereas Bo Nix at this point, man, the callus is there. That would have been nothing to him.
That last point is probably the best point there, Chad, because it's extremely true. And I could just add on to what you were saying. I mean, you mentioned the things that Bo Nix does or would have done differently. One thing Bo Nix did last season was win with the ball in his hands in the fourth quarter. And what no one talks about is the fourth quarter of the AFC title game, in the fact that Jarrett Stidham, Chad, had multiple drives, multiple chances with the ball in his hands down a field goal to drive the Broncos down the field to either tie the game or take the lead. I guarantee you, if that was Bo Nix under center, they would have taken the lead in the fourth quarter if the situation played out the same. I think it's no question at all. And I think the people that doubt whether they would have made it with Bo Nix have a serious Bo Nix agenda. I'll leave it at that.
Well said, my brother. Michaela, love you so much. Thank you for the support. It's going to be a long off season. Broncos fans, I'm telling you, as someone, Zach and I, we kind of have our finger on the pulse of Broncos country, because not only this show, but we have some really big social media accounts, and we can see things as it kind of unfolding in real time. And similar to last year, Zach, I think a good chunk of Broncos fans, when Bo went down and then we got bounced, I think they're going, all right, I got to take a break from the Broncos for a little while. And in most seasons, that break, Zach, is maybe a week, 2 weeks in terms of the off season, kind of, all right, get that out of our system. Let's focus on the future and what we can do to better this thing and all that. This time, I think it's going to be another kind of slog of an off season where it feels like it takes forever, because we're not living on what could be in terms, like, Zach, think about how long we went just going, like, we were living in the off season, because all of our dreams and all of the things that couldn't maybe be, by the time you got to the football season, 2 weeks in, the writing was on the wall. It ain't happening. So now that we know that's not the case, man, it just feels like it takes even longer. So it's a long-winded way of saying, Michaela, that the support, we really appreciate you. And this offseason, we could really use it. So thank you, my friend. I want to grab this from our dear member, Raj, the stream guy, saying, Chatter Zach, I don't understand the medicals on Nix's ankle injury. Is this a recurring injury issue? Which bone in his ankle did he break? And how many times in the past has he broken his ankle? Now, Zach, I'm going to let you answer this, because when all the stuff with Peyton that Tuesday after the title game, and then Bo calling his own presser and all that stuff, I was traveling. I was Tommy Boy road tripping. It was Scott. Then I was at the Senior Bowl. I wasn't as present for that stuff that I might normally be. So what are your thoughts here for Raj?
I think all these conversations, it's funny, they tiptoe on the edge of violating HIPAA, but that's what this scuttlebutt was about Bo. Based on his history, he did have a few ankle injuries. I don't have the webpage pulled up, the exact number, but I know he did have a history of ankle injuries dating back to, I believe it was high school, definitely in college. And Sean Payton made a comment basically that the surgeon told him that he was predisposed to those ankle fractures to the point where it was an inevitability. It was a matter of when he was going to fracture the ankle and not if he was going to fracture the ankle in the NFL with the Broncos. And the fact that he did in the divisional round was basically, they were like, okay, well, we expected that. So maybe, Chad, if you pull it up, you'll have a more accurate answer specifically how many times he heard it. But I know it was very out of the ordinary for that press conference, which you talked about. You brought that up, to pop up out of nowhere. Bo Nix wasn't scheduled to talk. It was a locker room clean out day, and he met with reporters via Zoom. He was coming off the injury. He didn't have to talk, but he wanted to set the record straight. He needed to set the record straight and push back on Sean Payton, saying he shouldn't have said that. That basically Sean Payton was completely wrong, and I'll be good. He narrowed down the timeline for return to a matter of weeks. So he'll be good to go for the offseason program. He basically, there was a lot of doom and gloom that Sean Payton put out there in Broncos country, and Bo Nix went out there and set the record straight and removed it. So that's where we stand right now.
So Bo Nix, first of all, Sean Payton, you guys remember when he came back that night, had his original press conference after the Bills game, disappeared for 15 minutes, and then came back with the bad news. During that little disappear, he went back to his office, was shown the x-rays, was told Bo's done for what remains of this season, walks out of his office, looks down the hall. Bo's at the end in the corner, still suited up, surrounded by his family and the quarterbacks and Davis Webb. And so Sean Payton goes down there and he recounts the story. He said, I sat down by him, I'm trying to console him, this and that. And he says to me, I'm Sean Payton. He says, this is I had one in high school. I had one in college at Auburn. And now this one. And remember Sean Payton, kind of some gallows humor, is like, well, if I'd have known that, I wouldn't have drafted you.
Yeah.
Right. And then I thought that would be that. And then he said what he did Tuesday, his end of season press conference, as you just did a good job, Zach, illustrating that Bo Nix said they got their wires crossed. There was no pre-existing condition other than, yes, he had broken he had ankle injuries before. And that if you want to hear what Greg Penner said about it immediately after the season, later that same day, let me see. He said, quote, I have zero concern about his ankle injury. His surgery was a straightforward surgery that went very well. Absolutely no issues there or concerns going forward. And then he went on to extol how great of a job Bo did in year two, and especially as a fourth quarter guy. So that's that. Bo Nix corrected the record. Was it Wednesday that he called the virtual presser, Zach, or later Tuesday? I can't remember because, again, I was traveling. But he says, take it from Bo. Bo says, no, there was no pre-existing thing that made this a matter of course. And that's where the butting of heads is kind of being perceived, Zach, because not only is he saying, no, Sean was wrong, or that he misunderstood perhaps what was being told to him about the ankle, but that also Bo Nix literally said he shouldn't have said that. So that kind of, is there some problem brewing between head coach and quarterback? But look, it's not ideal, Zach, to have to even have this as a topic, because otherwise the Broncos would be in the Super Bowl. But they're saying, as a unified owner, GM, head coach, and now Bo saying, I'll be good to go for the future.
Yeah, that's what I love about Bo. I don't think it's so surprising that he actually called the presser, because he's not afraid to push back on Sean Payton when he thinks it's deserved. He did it on the sideline. He screamed back at him when Sean Payton got on him. We've talked about this before, but it had to have been fairly egregious, Chad. I tend to believe Bo Nix, because why else would he do that and go out of his way while he's recovering from an injury after a heartbreak end to his season? He's going to call a virtual press conference to set the record straight. I happen to believe Bo Nix here, and it's only being brought up right now talked about because there's nothing else going on, and that's what we're going to hear about until May, or until whenever Bo Nix gets back in April. But once he does, and when he proves that it's overblown, we won't hear about it again, and I cannot wait for that day.
All right, we got Ralph Bracegirdle checking in. What's up, Ralph? My Parisi says, question for you. Is Drew Lock the first drafted Broncos quarterback to get a ring? No, there's like 7 guys who have gone on to get rings as backup quarterbacks with other teams. Let me try something. Hold on. How many? Hold on. Max. Hold on. Drafted that. Hold on. All right. I'll give you the answer right now because I'm not sure all 6 of them besides Drew Lock, but let's see. Bro, no. Drew Lock, Trevor. No, that doesn't count. Tommy Maddox got a ring elsewhere with the Steelers as a backup. Drew Lock, John Huffnagel. So there you go. But it is cool to see him get one, Zach. I'm happy for Drew Lock to get a little extra bling. He's kind of had a rough go of it in the league, so little success. I feel a little bit awkward for Drew watching him post game and trying to kind of celebrate with Sam Darnold and Clint Kubiak. But hey, man, treasure it, Drew.
He was very respectful in the lead up to the game, talking about his time with the Broncos. He goes, I still have love for them. I'll always have love for them. He could have easily been bitter, Chad, about the divorce from Denver, and he wasn't. So I find it interesting now he has the same amount of rings as Russell Wilson.
Yeah, no doubt. Ralph also says Gene William had probably the only McMillian jersey at the MHH meetup, LOL, and Pat Bryant signed it. That's cool. Yeah, definitely the only one who came to the meet and greet wearing a McMillan jersey. I saw a couple when I was in the stadium, but definitely the only guy I saw with one on at the MHH party, so to speak. That's definitely how I remember it as well. Taylor Christensen, a dear member, a superstar, jumping in to say Sean Payton proved New England did not deserve it. Everyone, including, is that what he's saying, Sean Payton? Everyone, including New England fans, know it. Should we move on from JS after his AFC performance? I think Justin Sternad, I think middle linebacker could be a first round deal. So Zach, in the very first, Eric Trickle's very first mock draft of the 2026 season. So it was the post Senior Bowl and Shrine Bowl mock draft. He had, I'm trying to remember. I'll pull it up. He had the Texas kid. What's his name? Hold on. He had Anthony Hill for the Broncos in round 1.
I mean, it would depend on what they do in free agency. Before we talk about the draft, if they address those needs, wide receiver, running back, this and that, in free agency, they can pretty much go BPA in the draft. And if there's one defensive area I do want them to prioritize in round 1, it would be middle linebacker. Taylor, you got to stop throwing so many acronyms and abbreviations at us. I thought it was Jarrett Stidham, but yeah, if you're talking about Sternad, I absolutely agree. I would move on from Singleton too. And I know there's a rumor out there about the Broncos moving on from Greenlaw. I think they do bring him back, but I'm looking to upgrade the spot next to him, if only for a reliable 3-down player, because everyone they have in that spot is unreliable, including Dre Greenlaw.
It kind of does make more sense in the context of his point that he would be talking about Jarrett Stidham. But then he ties it up at the end with middle linebacker. So you go, okay, Sternad. But yeah, New England, they just got lucky, dude. They got lucky that Bo Nix injured his ankle, or else we all know it would have been the Broncos. Appreciate you, big dog. Really good to see you. We also have checking in here Shannon Mills, another legendary, mythical Mount Rushmore superstar. We love you. Thank you, Shannon. She says, good evening. Last night's game was tough to watch. The Broncos would have made that game so much more competitive for sure. In a positive note, the Broncos will most likely have more weapons for the next Super Bowl. Go Broncos. Yeah, Zach, one of those weapons, it appears, potential weapons that is off the board in George Pickens, likely being, according to Adam Schefter, franchise tagged by the Cowboys. And you go, oh, well, that takes him off the board. And of course, you got that vocal minority that goes, well, wait a minute, couldn't they do a tag and trade? And it's like, well, it's possible, but very unlikely. Do you see that? How feasible do you see a tag and trade?
Not feasible at all when there's other routes the Broncos can go to acquire wide receiver help. I'm glad at least it takes. I wouldn't have minded Pickens from a talent perspective, but there are the attitude concerns, character concerns, and now the Broncos won't have to worry about that. Shannon, I want to address your point really quickly, but Taylor was talking about Stidham. I don't think, just to put a bow on that, they move on from Stidham. He's a good backup to have, but you can't force him to a starting role with the lack of help that he had. And also, it was a big game for him, and he just didn't meet the spot. But yeah, you're going to have to prioritize every route, whether trade, free agency, the draft, to help out Bo Nix at receiver. I'm looking at other players like maybe Garrett Wilson. Call Minnesota about Jefferson. You never know. Everyone that could be available. Atlanta for Drake. New Orleans for Chris Olave. Whatever receiver that you think could be available, Jalen Waddle in Miami, I am picking up the phone because Bo Nix deserves it, and you have to go out and get him. Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, I mean, they've done a good job of building the trenches around Bo Nix. Now they got to build the actual nest. And I mean, I think, again, I don't want to go on another Marvin Mims tangent too much here, but I think a lot of the problems that people perceive as, the missing elements in this passing offense, man, Marvin Mims could offer you a lot of that stuff, dude. Like, look at what he did again against Buffalo, what he did against the Patriots. But yeah, Jarrett Stidham, he obviously, Zach, was overwhelmed by the moment.
Yes.
And that was exacerbated by the weather in the second half. I thought he looked pretty decent initially while the Broncos were still on their first 15, right? That structured first 15 to 20 plays that they game plan and lock in, like this is what's being called to open the game. Once they got outside of that, he looked skittish beyond all skittish. And then, of course, the snow really muddied that water. But he still, look, how many quarterbacks in the history of the NFL have been asked on that short of notice to start a game of that magnitude? Like, you can count them on one hand. It happens so rarely. It's not a situation. I mean, people talked about Zach, the last one to do it, who made his first start of the season in the conference championship game was Roger Staubach, going way back, whatever that was, sometime in the 70s. And it's like, yeah, we didn't really want to mention it, but by the way, they lost that game, did the Cowboys. Like, so it's tough, man. And it's not just because of the enormity, Zach, of the game, but also because the opponent, if you're in the conference championship game, odds are that opponent that you're drawing, even though whether you're on the road or at home, they're probably pretty dang good with a pretty dang good defense. So I think Jarrett Stidham is a great backup. If you need him, Zach, for more than a couple, 2-3 games, though, watch out. Unfortunately, up to this point, it's never been more than that.
And not to exonerate him by any means, because he did not play a good game except for one pass. But what plagued him were the same things that plagued Bo Nix and would have plagued Bo Nix if he were to have started that game. And what I mean by that was the lack of a running game, the lack of reliable receivers, Chad, and also his head coach and play caller galaxy braining and overthinking the situation. So I don't think by any means his teammates or the coaching staff did Stidham any favors. And also Stidham himself didn't do himself any favors either.
Shannon, so stoked for this offseason because, they got the resources. Bob Morris has done a good job of laying out at the website at milehighhuddle.com some of the paths that the Broncos can take to free up even more cap space. And that's without having to cut anybody too, by the way. So hopefully you guys are staying up on that, because as it stands, even with the expected increase in salary cap level, the Broncos have roughly $29 million in cap space. And even if that's all they end up having, that's more than enough for them to go out and get done, especially, Zach, with them having a full complement of draft picks. They can build that nest. But Shannon, love you and appreciate you. Taylor Christensen with the second super says it's early, but Broncos have the 12th best odds to win Super Bowl 61. Crazy. LOL. Yeah, that seems a little low to me. I don't know where you're sourcing that, like what sports book or whose odds you're citing there specifically, Taylor. But Broncos should be, in my opinion, Zach, somewhere in the top 6 in terms of Super Bowl odds. Like, again, it took a freak injury for them to not be in the Super Bowl. And we know if they would have been in the Super Bowl, dude, it would have at least been competitive. They could have won it as easily as the Seahawks.
So when I mentioned ESPN's ranking is putting the Broncos fourth, they're behind the Seahawks. I get that. They won the Super Bowl, but also the Patriots and the Rams. You could definitely argue they shouldn't be behind the Patriots with, we talk about a healthy Bo Nix, the Broncos win that game. But then you go to a different source, Fox Sports has the Broncos as the number one team in their power ranking. So it's just, it varies depending on where you look, Taylor, but that's the underdog mentality. Let them hate. Let them place them 12th right now. Let the odds be low because they're going to make believers out of a lot of people once again.
We got the Adventure Soldier checking in, another dear member and superstar. Great to see you, buddy. He says, what's up, MHH and Broncos country? I'm so glad the Super Snooze Fest is done. I'm excited to hear news in the coming months. I think Denver would have done better in the Super Bowl, obviously. Sorry if the sentiment is repeated. No, I think, look, for now, while the Super Bowl is still fresh, I think it's within everybody inside of Broncos country's rights to feel that way and to express those those kind of thoughts because it's freaking true. Now, can you put the toothpaste back in the tube? No. That ship sailed with the Bo Nix's broken ankle. There's no getting it back. But boy, oh boy, did that Super Bowl make it clear that, man, Zach, remember after the Buffalo game, team of destiny? I'm like, yes.
Yeah,
that destiny still awaits, bro. I'm telling you, that destiny still awaits.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I was just going to say I'll never forget the roller coaster of emotions, Chad, in that second, finding out the fact that Bo Nix fractured his ankle. But at this point, I feel like we've been therapeutic about it for long enough. And at some point, and this goes for myself more than anybody else, we're going to have to turn the page and focus on 2026. But eventually, I agree with every point you made there. I was not looking forward to the Super Bowl. I'm glad it's done. It was a lose-lose. I'm very excited for the draft and free agency and all that. The Broncos definitely would have done better than what the Patriots would have. And it's not repeated too much because I'm saying it, but I think now with 2026, the offseason starting, we need to focus on what's ahead because what's ahead is bigger and better.
Well said. Thank you, Adventure Soldier. So good to see you. Lawrence, shout out on Facebook. He says, what's up, guys? CSU Rams had some players playing for Seattle yesterday. Indeed. No doubt about it. And some former Broncos and some CU players. Indeed. Thank you, Lawrence, for pointing that out, big dog. I want to see, Ralph says, as an EMT, medical professionals cannot share information. If general public has knowledge, there are no HIPAA violations. But employers, I think there are restrictions on what employers can share. Now, within the scope, Zach, of public figures and professional sports, I don't know how that kind of colors the math there, but interesting point. Thank you, big dog. Arlie Tucker says, Bo is tough. He played with cracked ribs last year. Looking forward to many years and a couple of Lombardis with Bo. Go Broncos. Yeah, man, it's the AFC, Zach, is, even though it was the NFC that won the Super Bowl this year, the AFC is so much more fraught with peril. It's so much harder to get to the top of the mountain through the AFC as a conference, but all the pieces are there. Sean Payton's back. Davis Webb is back. Vance Joseph is back. Those are the three most important coaches, and they're all coming back. Bo Nix will be back. We've already talked about the defensive guys. We've talked about the offense. This team just needs to make a few tweaks, and I honestly think, Zach, even if you left the wide receiver core pretty much as is and just changed the pecking order a little bit and said, hey, Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, those are the two guys that are always on the field. And then, take your pick. Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant. Even if you left the wide receivers, my point here, intact as is and didn't make much changes to the room, you got to get a better ground game than what you had last year. And even though you had a good one when JK was healthy, you can't rely on him. He could be part of the picture coming back, but he can't be the guy. Eric was like, hey, man, re-sign him, but let him know he's the third guy. I don't know if I'd go that far. I would just say, hey, we're signing you. You're going to have an opportunity to be the number one and compete for that, but you're not just the set and forget number one guy as you were last year.
Yeah, we could talk about how good of a coach Sean Payton is, and he is, but this team will always just go as far as the quarterback takes them. And the Broncos finally have their franchise quarterback. And as long as Bo Nix stays healthy, they are going to be competitive. I am not more bearish on the Broncos. I am not less bullish on the Broncos going forward with Bo Nix's injury. In fact, I am more bullish on the Broncos going forward. And I still hold true to myself that they will get at least one ring with Bo Nix under center. Absolutely believe that in my heart.
I think back to the call on the couch, dude.
Yep.
Hey, you want to win a Super Bowl? You know, like
Should
I
have
think
been
it's
this
gonna
year.
happen. It's gonna happen, guys. Dutch is jumping in again. Love you.
Thank you, Michaela.
She says, I think she's saying Njoku, right? Is what she's probably saying
Yeah.
here, Zach. Being a free agent and not wanting to go back to the Browns, should be aggressive and go get him. What a world where Darnold wins a Super Bowl before,
Yep.
Lamar, exactly. Joe Burrow. That is crazy, man. I'm happy for him though. Like, I love the redemption arc. I love the redemption story. I love that even though I'm not a USC guy, I love statistical firsts and him being, the first USC quarterback to make good in the Super Bowl and all that stuff. I'm happy for him. I'm just glad it wasn't the Patriots, like Garrett Bowles said at the Pro Bowl. Zach, he didn't just say I'm rooting for the Seahawks. He said I want the Patriots to lose. So at least that shook out the way it should have.
Darnold got a ring before Josh Allen too, which is crazy, man. This business is absolutely nuts. But Michaela brings up a good point. There's breaking news. It was about 58 minutes ago from Adam Schefter is that Njoku will not return to the Browns in 2026. So absolutely, I've been a big fan of his, even coming out of college, coming out of Miami. He's been a playmaker throughout. He's also a good inline blocker. He's a better version to me and a more productive version of Evan Ingram. I would absolutely look to bring him in. I wouldn't break the bank by any means, but he would fit a Sean Payton offense very well. Thank you so much, Michaela, for the second super.
According to Spot Rack, Michaela, the big salary cap website, David Njoku announced that he plans to sign elsewhere this free agent season, leaving the Browns with $24.3 million of dead cap on his way out with a void year. That's what that is. Cleveland will treat him as a post-June 1st release, taking on dead cap hits of $9.5 million this year, $14.8 million next year. That's not anyone's problem who signs him as a free agent, by the way. So go get him, Broncos. Like Eric today, by the way, dropped an excellent article, 10 tight ends for the Broncos, the top 10 tight ends to watch in this draft. And there's a couple guys in there that are interesting. Of course, there's only one top 50 guy as it currently stands, and that's Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon, who, Zach, draws a lot of comparisons to Njoku.
If you remember the Monday night game in 2024, I think that was the Marvin Mims game, Njoku killed the Broncos when Jameis Winston started. I think he had 2 touchdowns. I mean, he was a legit threat that game. So the Broncos saw him up close and personal. I would absolutely look to bring him in. I've been saying that for at least a year. So thank you for bringing that up, Michaela.
Yeah, what was that? That was week 13. And yes, let's just revisit it real quick since I'm there.
I'm pretty sure.
Good memory, dude. 17 targets.
They had no one else.
9 catches, 52 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yeah.
Except Jerry Jeudy.
Good job. Love you, Michaela. Thank you for the support tonight, my friend. Byron Lewis checking in. Good to see you, pal. And he says the Super Bowl was a joke. True that. Broncos should have been there. We need a stud receiver, an inside linebacker to get back to the dance for sure. I will miss John Franklin Myers on the D-line, Zach.
Me too. He's a tremendous player. I've really enjoyed watching him play because, again, he might talk a big game. He might put out some trash talk on Twitter and mix it up with fans. He might have a few attitude concerns that he's not a 100% an angel, but he backs it up on the field. He set a career high in sacks this past season. When I wrote about him, I realized that once again. He was also productive across the board. Tackles for loss and pressures and solo tackles. Just, again, a very, very talented player, fun player to watch. I wish we talked about alternate timelines, Chad. In an alternate timeline, he's back with Denver, but not in this one, more than likely.
Byron jumps in again. Second super chat. You the man, bro. says, I'll be ready to go. Quote, I'll be ready to go if I need to be. I have no doubts that I'm a starting caliber quarterback. That was what Jarrett Stidham said when he lost the competition to Bo Nix in the late summer of 2024. And then Byron goes on to say, yeah, Stidham with his middle school chest pads.
Listen.
I mean, again, guys, like, I'm with you that he was obviously not only not good enough, but if you point to any one player, he was as complicit in that loss to the Patriots as any one guy because of the 2 turnovers. The one at the end, all right, fine. You are trying to make something happen. You don't have any chances left. You hurl one up, whatever. The 2-handed fumble, though, Zach, that's the one that I just don't understand how the Sam Hill, he allowed that to happen. And there were a lot of close calls like that, by the way, where he's just like holding on to it way too long. Patriots almost got to him in similar situations several other times. But I do have some sympathy for him. It was a tough ask to get ready for a situation of that and an opponent, Zach, defense-wise, of that magnitude on, a week's time. It's tough, dude. So I like him as a backup. Bo Nix stubs his toe and he's out a week. I'm good with Jarrett Stidham in the regular season. Please, God, please, football gods, don't ever put this team in a situation again where you must rely and lean on Jarrett Stidham in any playoff game, least of all, let alone a conference championship.
Yeah, at least let it be a regular season game, not the freaking AFC title game. But I think, Chad, you did a good job earlier answering your own question as to why it happened the way it happened. I think he was playing too tight. We talked about that with Bo Nix at times. He was pressing too much. He was coming in basically cold after the entire season of being the backup. He had just a couple snaps to his name. It was a huge moment. The weather was inclement in the second half. There was a ton of things working against him. And I also mentioned the lack of help that he had. But there really is no excuse, Byron, ever in any game, in any circumstance, for a 2-handed fumble, a push fumble. Come on, Jarrett.
Yeah, I was having some laughs about that yesterday on the couch with watching the game. And sorry, guys, we didn't end up streaming last night with the Broncos being out of it and stuff. We're just like, you know what? Let's just – and the game going so late. We're like, we'll just wait till tomorrow. But I was sitting on the couch and in the family party that I was at, of course, 100% Bronco fans in the room, and everyone, expressing the same sentiments. Like, man, seeing this from this Patriots, like, Broncos should be. If the Broncos were in this game, if Bo Nix was healthy, not only they'd be in this game, and they'd not only be in this game, they'd be like, this would be a game, not the snooze fest that it was. And I made a comment. I'm like, yeah, it's like my pard Zach says, about Jarrett Stidham and the 2-handed fumble, and everybody's laughing because 2-handed fumble, Jarrett Stidham. There's the butt fumble and Mark Sanchez, Zach, and now we've got the 2-handed Jarrett Stidham fumble.
Yeah. Does it paper over, though, the Raheem Moore play? Because that was the divisional round in that game. Which is worse, Chad, in our hearts? I don't know. It's a tough one. Toss up.
That is tough, but I got to go with Raheem because
see
that situation, the game was on the line, right? Like, there's the truthers. There's the who was it? Tony Carter, Sticky Man truthers out there who say it happened because of Sticky Man, by the way, and don't blame Raheem Moore, and because Sticky Man was the corner in coverage and da. But I still think, in terms of bearing the individual responsibility of a loss, I think it was probably more of a case on Raheem Moore, because even though Jarrett Stidham, Zach, had the 2-handed fumble that gifted the Patriots a touchdown, they still had 2 quarters to try and make up for it.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned earlier that we have to turn the page and get over the game. That day is not going to be today, though, because when you think about it, Chad, right now, we could have been talking about the Broncos as Super Bowl champions. And you can make the argument we should have been talking about the Broncos. It's going to sting for a while, no doubt about it.
Hey, Robert on Facebook. Good to see you, pal. He says, hi, guys. Not the first time, but long time. Thank you for all the hard work you guys always put in.
Thank you, Robert.
And God bless you and yours. Thank you, pal. Right back at you. Good to see you. Let's grab a couple member comments / questions, see what's on everyone else's mind here, too. Like Jordan Lewis saying, I'm just excited for the offseason big moves at running back and wide receiver. Let's hope, Zach, the Broncos brass are seeing it the same way. Like, again, would I be completely shocked if the wide receiver room goes relatively untouched? No. I would, however, be extremely taken aback if they do nothing at running back.
Yeah, I just feel like it's different this year. I know the fan base has PTSD from last year when the Broncos sat on their hands, especially at the trade deadline. And Sean Payton famously said, we're good with who we have at wide receiver, including Lil Jordan Humphrey and Elijah Moore in the AFC title game. Again, we're not over the loss yet, but they absolutely need to upgrade the supporting cast, both the floor and the ceilings of both of those rooms. I am bringing, like you talk about, Chad, I'm re-signing J.K. Dobbins, and I'm bringing in Breece Hall, and I'm drafting a running back in the middle rounds, and I'm obviously retaining Harvey and the incumbents, letting them all go to battle. They cannot get enough help and weaponry for Bo Nix this offseason. It's number one on the objective list.
Pearl jumping in, a dear member. By the way, Pearl, you got to send us a pic of the jersey that you got. Finally it arrived. Glad to see that. And thanks for keeping me in the loop on that. But she says, I admit I did not watch the Super Bowl for the first time in 20 years. Wow. I watched the Olympics. I just did not like either team. Yeah, I mean, it was hard to sell that Super Bowl. Hard to sell, no doubt about it. Good to see you. Williams in the house saying, I agree with Zach on Singleton and Sternad. Love the guys, but they're just not good enough. We have to upgrade. And Zach, there's going to be some options out there in free agency and just generally the draft. But you had an interesting article, was it yesterday or the day before, about the Eagles guy that might have some interest landing in Denver. Was it the Eagles?
Yeah, he's an Eagle.
Nakobe
Dean. Yeah. He did say that he'd be open for sure to joining the Broncos if he hits the open market, but he also made it clear that his number one preference would be to remain with the Eagles. It seemed like, Chad, he might have been putting some leverage play out there ahead of a foray onto the open market. There's the injury concerns with Nakobe Dean, so if you don't like Dre Greenlaw, you wouldn't like Dean because of the injury history. Chad, the Broncos basically, if they have to aim down in the sense of not getting a name player, but finding a player that's going to stay healthy for the entire season, that's what they need objective number one, because they've had so much turnover and that part of the field, at that position, they just need reliability at this point.
Keith, a dear member, says, Drake, maybe, LOL. This just shows we would have beat the Patriots with Bo Nix and J.K. Dobbins. J.K. would have been back for the Super Bowl, that is, right? Like Mike Thompson, a dear member. One, nobody can convince me Denver doesn't win that Super Bowl with Bo and Dobbins. Two, Denver being 12th in the Vegas odds for 27 is mind-numbing. It is. It does not compute, does not make sense, does not add up. Well said. Let me see here. We have Mailman Ossendorf jumping in. Good to see you, pal. Dear member and superstar who we got to hang out with at the meet and greet. That was awesome. Says, just got home from work, jumped in to say hi. I'll listen later. MHH for life. Awesome to have both of you 4 nights a week now. Yes, indeed. We're stoked to be back on the rotation Wednesday nights. Byron Lewis jumping in with a third super chat. Bro, going off tonight. Please get rid of Tyler Bidet. Matter of fact, can we get rid of all these cats that can't stay healthy and or are just waiting to get elevated for a check? No more Caleb Loner projects. Yeah, Tyler Bidet, Zach, is a free agent. I'm trying to remember now off the top of my head, is he a restricted or exclusive rights? But I think it's pretty safe to say he comes back. Will he make the roster again? Not sure.
Well, I agree with Byron. I'm waving bye-bye to Tyler Bidet, whatever. It's been annoying, Chad, ever since the whole name fiasco with him, but a player that his stock has fallen dramatically in Broncos country in 2024, after the Jets game that he got injured in, I think it was.
Yep.
There was talk about him in 25 being a real contributor to the backfield. And every time it seems, and I talked about this throughout the season on here and on KK, it seemed like every time he was involved with a play, the play went backward or the play was unproductive. It never jibed with his skill set. So I agree, Byron, get rid of Bidet. If he's a RFA or whatever, I wouldn't even tender him. Upgrade, like I said, the floor and ceiling of the backfield.
Outside of I thought he made a few plays as a pass catcher, but as a ball carrier, he was almost useless in 2025. He is, by the way, officially an exclusive rights free agent, which means he will get tendered and brought back in to compete. Whether he sticks, again, remains to be seen. We have the Lady D jumping in off the top
Thank you
rope
so
as well
much.
tonight.
Thank you.
Great to see you, Deanna. In case you missed it at the top of the show, all of the Mount Rushmore care packages were shipped. You guys should be seeing them here in the next couple days or so. So let us know when you get those. She says, "Evening, Chad and Zach. Stidham never plays, so we can't act surprised with the outcome. The Super Bowl was a joke. Looking forward to getting some beef on the offensive line and some depth. Super Bowl 61 champs. Go Broncos. MHH for life."
Thank
Yeah,
you,
I
Dan.
mean, Zach, do you expect to see any meaningful changes? We're about out of time here, by the way, guys. I'm just realizing, boy, time flies. But do you expect to see changes or just some depth added to the O-line?
They're going to probably leave well enough alone. Maybe something happens with Ben Powers' contract. I think you're going to see them run it back with the same five. Although, Deanna, like I've been saying, and I agree with you, we're kind of in the minority here, but I'm bringing in at the very minimum competition for Luke Wattenberg at center just to keep the floor a little higher and keep the competition a little better behind him, because I don't know, despite what the Broncos think, I'm not that sold long-term on Wattenberg at center. He might be a better guard long-term for the Broncos, Chad. But thank you, as always, Deanna, for your generous super.
I mean, we had always heard from the Broncos how much they loved Wattenberg. But even knowing that, I was surprised that he got extended not only when he did, Zach, but at the level that he did. So, but it telegraphs to us he's part of at least the next couple 2 years or so plan for the Broncos. All right, guys, almost out of time. Love you, Lady D. So good to see you. Give our best to the hubby. Where was George? I was going to grab George right here. George says, "Thanks to Broncos Country along with Mile High Huddle. Now we get ready for the 26th season. Broncos for life, MHH for life. Hit the thumbs up. Thank you, buddy. Really appreciate you." I want to grab this from Todd, and then we'll get on out of here. Another dear member says, "My biggest question on defense, what happened to Savion Jones this past year? I thought Q Robinson looked much better." Well, Q played the whole season on specials and rotating as a rush linebacker. Savion Jones, I think, Zach, they dressed him twice, if memory serves. But they're so deep there. They basically said, "Hey, red shirt, learn the ways, learn how it goes, and you're red shirting." They'll be relying on Savion Jones a lot more next year. Now, whether he's equal to that opportunity remains to be seen. But also interior defenders, Zach, typically take a little bit, couple 2-3 years to really develop.
Well, there's that, yeah. But there's also the fact that they play different positions. Savion plays with his hand in the dirt, and Q basically stands up. So I think it's apples and oranges to compare him there. But speaking of Savion, it's hard to rotate a lot of defensive linemen in when you're that deep on the defensive line. Remember, I mean, you mentioned Malcolm Roach, but also Wuzurike was part of the deal as well, and he had a good season. So Savion being a rookie in the adjustment, the acclimation period, he got kind of lost in the fray. But them not even approaching JFM about an extension proves, Chad, and shows that they have a lot of confidence in Savion Jones as a starter going forward.
Todd says, "I think we are winning the AFC West again next year." I'm with you on that. Now, I can't predict a number one seed, but I like Denver's outlook in the division because we already match up so well with the Chiefs. Chargers will continue to be a pickle, but I'm curious to see what kind of shape that defense takes with Jesse Minter being gone. We shall see. Thank you, buddy. We got String Guy Raj saying, "Hit the like button all for the number one best Broncos podcast." Also, great chat, folks. Thank you. Really appreciate you. Shout out to Roy. Savion Jones will get more playing time next season. That's for sure. All right, guys, we got a couple messages for you, and then we'll take one last look at the chat. Don't go anywhere.
Another tremendous episode, as always, of the Mile High Huddle podcast. If you're not doing so, please follow us on X at the MHH Pod. You can follow the main account on X at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're rocking each and every single podcast, check out mhhmerch.com and get you some. If you haven't done so yet, please drop us a like at facebook.com/milehighhuddlepod. You can find us on Instagram at mile_high_huddle. If you haven't done so, also please join our new Discord channel. The link is in the description below. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your Football Priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, please, very important, as always, that you subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
All right, real quick before we dip on out of here, no, the Broncos are not going to be looking for another backup quarterback. Jarrett Stidham is under contract, and I mean, if it didn't turn out the Broncos' way, he ended up being overwhelmed. All that stuff we've already talked about. But if it wasn't clear by how the team talked about him all week, I mean, they love Jarrett Stidham as the backup, mind you, but they love Jarrett Stidham. They love the relationship that Stidham has with Bo and that they all have together with Davis Webb and Sean Payton. So, like, that's not changing. It's going to be interesting to see how Logan Kilgore changes the equation as the official quarterbacks coach moving forward. But Zach, as the final word here on that, I don't see quarterback changing other than I think Sam Ehlinger is going to now take his opportunity to go try and make some hay on top of the image stock rehabilitation he got with Sean Payton for a year, kind of like Zach Wilson.
This is a year that I could see Sean Payton using a mid-round pick, like a 5th or 6th maybe, on a quarterback. Someone that he can mold for himself. They don't have to sign. Not an also-ran, not someone with developmental issues or history of developmental issues. Someone that he can mold as fresh putty, so to speak. I think that's what he does for the 3rd quarterback spot this offseason.
All right, guys, a mile-high salute and a special shout-out to the great Super Chat superstars and supporters and dear members helping us keep the lights on tonight. Like Michaela Parker going off. We love you. The Papa Bear, Ted Wunderlich, Sam Bam, Ralph Bracegirdle, Taylor Christensen with multiple supers, Shannon Mills, Adventure Soldier, Lawrence Rivera, Byron Lewis, multiple supers, George Fox on Facebook, Mailman Ossendorf, the Lady D checking in. Awesome time, you guys. And to each and every one of you that are also members, I won't maybe have time to mention everybody, but Pearl, Todd, Mike, Roy, all of you. Love you so much. Appreciate you. Raj, can't wait to see you on Wednesday. Jordan as well. Again, if I don't mention your name as a member, it's not because I don't love you. It's that we're out of time. So see you Wednesday. Have a great start to your week.
And we'll see some of y'all tomorrow for Kelberman's Corner at noon Mountain, 2 Eastern. For hot takes that'll hold water.
For the members, for the YouTube members, let's go.
That's right. Members only. We will see you tomorrow at noon. But until then, have a great rest of your Monday. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.